All right, welcome to topic 2 notes, graphing quadratic functions. Okay, so graphing is super easy, it's just a few steps. So just remember, this right here is a quadratic function. This is what we call a parabola. And then, so what we call zeros, roots, or x-intercepts are where the graph crosses your x-axis, right? So this graph right here, right, excuse me, it goes through this and it crosses your x-axis here and it crosses your x-axis here. So if they ask for the zero or the root, what they're talking about is the x-intercepts. Okay, your vertex is always the highest point or the lowest point. So in this case, this is your vertex. The vertex is where your graph starts to change its direction. So you here and then it turns all the way back, right? So this is your vertex. And then your axis of symmetry always goes through your vertex. So it goes through here. And this is your axis of symmetry. And your axis of symmetry is always an equation. It's x equals whatever x value it crosses. And in this case, it's a -1. So -1. All right, so let's go ahead and get all this information real quick, and then we'll jump to the notes. Axis of symmetry, well, remember, here's your vertex right here. So your axis of symmetry crosses that. Where can I cut this right in half so that the graph is symmetrical at x equals 1? So we have x equals 1. Where is your vertex? Your vertex is this point right here. Your vertex is a point, right? So it's x comma y. And this point is -1, -4. All right, is this a maximum or a minimum? So if you're looking at this graph, right, is this vertex, is this point right here the highest point on this graph, right? Because we have lots of points on this graph. They're all connected. Is the point that touching down here, the very first one that I drew, is that the highest point or the lowest point? This happens to be the lowest point. So then this is a minimum. Concave up or concave down, it's opening upwards, right? Opening upwards, so it's concave up. What are the roots or zeros? One way I told you guys you can write them is as actual points, right? So it'd be, here's a 0 right here, and then here's a 0 right here, or a root. So one way to write them would be like this. Negative, what is that? -3, 0, and 1, 0. Or you could write them as this: x equals -3 and x equals 1, right? And then your domain for a quadratic function is always the same. It's just all real numbers, right? There's a little R symbol. And your range is, remember, your range is a little different, how high and how low, right? Can I draw a line here and say this is the lowest y value? And can I draw here and say this is the highest y value? I would say, yes, this is the lowest y value because your graph doesn't go below that. So what y value is that right here? This y value is 4. And all your y values are above 4, which means if I'm talking about y values and 4, my y values have to be greater than or equal to 4. And then bam. All right. So let's go ahead and finish this up. So we have this right here is the standard form equation, right? It's ax squared plus bx plus c. All right. Why is that important? It's important because it's important to show us how we're going to find this information. Now, let me just say this. I have one of these examples already worked out. It's just to save time. I'm going to talk about it and then we'll do one together. So here's example 1. Here's the first example. So step 1. What we need to do is find the axis of symmetry. How do you find that? Using this formula right here. Axis of symmetry is -b over 2a. Okay, so then how do we do that? You take this is your a value, here's your b value, here's your c value. You take these values, you plug them in, and then you just find your axis of symmetry. When I plugged in my b value here and my a value down here, right, what I got was 1. Now remember, axis of symmetry is an equation. You get x equals 1. Now that you have your axis of symmetry, or your x value, you need to take this x value and plug it into this equation up here, because when you plug in an x value into a function, it's going to shoot out a y value. So then instead of me writing an x, right, and an x here, I'm going to plug in a 1 here and I'll plug in a 1 here. When I solve that math, right, I get y equals -7. So now I found my vertex. So 1 comma -7. Now, like if I was to go down here, my axis of symmetry is 1. That's why I have that here. Bam, bam, right? I also have my vertex because it's 1 comma -7. So 1 comma -7 is down here. Now, here's how we use these points to help us write. So this right here says find two more points. That's step 3. All right, so to find two more points, I always suggest you take x values that are closest to your axis of symmetry. It's always easiest that way. So the two x values that I chose were 3 and 4, or 4 and 3. Okay, so then if I chose these x values, what are their y values? That's what I'm trying to ask. So you take this x value, you plug it here, you plug it here, you do the math, and you get a 2. Take this x value, do the same, and you get a -3. Okay, so now I have 3 points. I have the vertex, and I have this point here and this point here. So let's go and plug them in. So 4, 2, 4, 2 is right here, and then 3, -3 is right here. Now here's what I do. I use the axis of symmetry to make more points, right? So this is 1, 2 spaces away from my axis of symmetry. So I go 1, 2, and then I have another point on that same line. Then I go 1, 2, 3. So then I go 1, 2, 3 out, and then here's another point. And then you draw your graph. All right, so let's quickly do this again. I'll use a different color. Let's use green, man, green. All right, so step 1, find your axis of symmetry, right? So you need to do -b over 2a. So I'm gonna plug it in real quick. Make sure I get my calculator too, just very quickly. Calculadora. All right, sorry guys. Bam, bam, bring that bad boy up. All right, -b over 2a. So what do I have? I have negative. That was already in my formula. Over 2. All right, plug in. Let me get a different color as well. All right, plug in what? So -b, here's a -2 goes here, and then a -1/2 goes here. All right, we need to plug this in my calculator and see what I get. So clear that real quick. Alpha y equals, I want a fraction. So I need a negative already there. Do a parentheses, -2, close parentheses. Bring that down. I have 2 parentheses. This is -1/2. I can enter another fraction. Just do alpha y equals again. Alpha y equals, and hit that fraction button. I need to go down 1 so I can put a negative in front, and then put 1/2. Close that bad boy off. Press enter. When I enter this correctly, I get -2. What does that mean? Your axis of symmetry, or that equation, is x equals -2. Bam. Step 1 complete. Now we need to take this point and we need to plug it into this function because we need to figure out what's its y value. All right, so real quick, y equals -1/2. I'll do parentheses squared minus 2 parentheses plus 1 because I'm plugging in this -2 here, right? I need to figure out, oh, if my x value is -2, what's my y value? All right, so do -1/2 alpha y equals, sorry. So we have 1 over 2, right? And then I need to do parentheses -2, square that bad boy, minus 2, close, -2 plus 1, press enter. All right, so the y value I get is 3. All right, so now we have my vertex. My vertex is -2, 3, right? Because we take this x value, put it here, take this y value, plug it here. All right, let's just start with that real quick. Let's plot my vertex and then create my axis of symmetry. So -2, 3, -2, 3 is right here. Axis of symmetry goes this way, right? Just goes bam, 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 bam. All right, this is not enough information for us to help graph the U-shaped parabola that we want. I need at least 2 more points to figure out what the side looks like and then use my axis of symmetry to reflect. All right, so I'm gonna just come up with 2 points real quick. So let's just draw this little box, right? X, Y, bam. Again, I like to use points, X values that are closest to my axis of symmetry, not just any random ones, but are closest to this. So I'm gonna use 0 and 1. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go back up here, type that. I'll show you the 0 here. Okay, delete that, put a 0 here. What do I get? So if I have a 0 and I have a 1, when I plug in 0, I get a 1. All right, go back up here, copy paste, delete that, put a 1. Let's see, delete this, put a 1, enter. -1.5, -1.5. All right, that's easy, cool. Now I'm done. Now I have my point. So let's plot 0, 1. 0, 1 is here. And then we have 1, negative 1.5. So we have 1 here, negative 1.5. This is right there. All right, cool. Now let's use my axis of symmetry. So if this, we know it's going to go down like that, right? That's the direction it's heading. So now I got to make some points over here. So let's see, this is 1, 2 units away. So 1, 2. All right, so then here's another point. And since this is 1, 2, 3 units away in the middle, I got to go the same. So 1, 2, 3. See, the other one's right here. Bam. All right, draw my U shape and I'm done. All right, so that was graphing quadratics.